Hello and welcome to Traditional Painting the Digital Way. This is where I use digital painting apps to teach traditional painting techniques. This is part 2 of my Charcoal Cat series, and in this video we're going to add more details and further refine the picture. If you want to follow along with traditional materials, check out part 1 in this series where I have a list of all the materials that you can use for making charcoal pictures. The app that we're going to be using is Infinite Painter for Android. And here I'm continuing work on Cutie Boots' face. And I'm just going ahead and using the charcoal pencil, both in Infinite Painter and if you're following along traditionally, to go ahead and add some more stripes to his head and just kind of work on his eyes and his nose, and a little bit on the fur on his back and around on his ears. And you just want to make sure that you get his features straight. You want to make sure that his eye and nose are sort of on the same plane, the same level, that you can even draw a line with a ruler across there to make sure that you've got them on the same level there and that they're not crooked or that one eye is higher than the other. You have to constantly check that when you're doing features on people's faces or animals' faces. And then I'm just taking my charcoal pencil and working a little bit on his ears, and then I switch off to the white charcoal pencil and add a little bit of some highlight to his ears, and then go ahead and constantly save. You have to constantly save when you're a beta tester, or just when you're using any kind of digital program. Always save. And in here I'm just kind of working a little bit more on his face, and I decided that his nose wasn't quite long enough. So I went ahead and erased it out, and I'm redrawing it again. And as I mentioned before, charcoal is a very forgiving medium. So you can just erase, take your cloth that you're using to smudge it with and just smudge that out, and take your eraser, and you can redo things quite easily in charcoal. And then I'm just kind of working on his eyes again, working a little bit more on his mouth there, and I just wanted to add some of the white highlights that are on his nose and his ears and on his feet, and just kind of around all around on him, because he's not dark. Of course, you can see in the color picture that he's not black on the dark places. He's got some light brown colors there, but he's not. It's not completely white either. It's kind of an in-between tone. So you would get that in-between tone if you're following along traditionally and digitally by not completely erasing out the areas that are sort of a lighter brown. You would leave kind of a little bit of an in-between gray color there. And that's just part of the way you do charcoal paintings, is that you want to have the whole range of shades there, from the darkest dark to the very lightest white, and all the different gray shades in between. And I was just refining the shape of his head a little. And one of the ways that you can also refine his shape is to erase out around him. And here you would just take your big eraser and erase around him if you're following along traditionally. And if digitally, just make the eraser a little bit bigger in the size. And just erase out around him, because you want to be able to see the darker shades of color on him better. And so here I'm just kind of smudging it all together, and I'm using the Vine charcoal and Infinite Painter. If you're following on traditionally, you would use your cotton rag that you've got to smudge the charcoal with. And I'm just kind of smoothing it out because I don't want it to look like eraser lines. I want it to look like he's laying on some kind of a blanket. And I'm making just little indications of where the wrinkles are and the shadows that are underneath him. And you would just use a little bit more darker charcoal underneath him to make the shadow for him so that he doesn't look like he's floating in air or something. And then I'm just kind of working again on the his head there, his head shape, and you can erase the background out and then draw it back in with charcoal, a charcoal pencil. And I'm just kind of working on the shape there, working on trying to get the fuzzy look of the hairs that stick out of his ears, because he's got little white hairs that stick out of his ears there. And so you want to kind of show that. And you can use your white charcoal pencil to actually show those little hairs there. But you don't want him to look like he's covered with lines, so you kind of make fur in groups. Like you do a group of a different color like white or something, and you would make it into a little group of hairs there, and then kind of smudge it at the top and leave the ends sticking out there so that it, like along the edges of his back, so that it looks like it's fur. But you don't make every single little hair. You try to show the places that are highlighted, but you don't want to just show every little hair there, because that's not the way it looks to the human eye when you're looking at something. You don't see every individual hair. You just see little clumps of hair, and so you just kind of have to make things in clumps. And so here I'm working on his back with the colored pencil, the charcoal pencil, black charcoal pencil, and just making kind of sketchy lines, but I'm also smudging them. And when you smudge the lines, that smooths them out, and it makes it look more realistic, and you can actually make these look like black and white photo if you want to. If you want to really take it to the nth degree, you can go ahead and just make it look just like a black and white photo with this charcoal. Charcoal paintings are very powerful. You can do lots of things with charcoal. I know people don't like it because it's messy. So I mean, you can do it digitally and then it's not messy, but you can still get the same look. You have to get the right program, and Infinite Painter is very good for that. You can also do it with Art Rage and Corel Painter as well. And then here I'm just kind of using my white charcoal pencil to add some highlights along his fur on the edge. And again, I'm just putting the little strokes that look like hairs along the edge of his body and not everywhere on his body. And I'm just kind of smoothing it out a little bit on top of his head and getting rid of some of the pencil strokes, and then adding a little bit more of the white on the top again so that I can show the medium tones of gray. And then, of course, he's got lots of hair sticking out on the edge of his face, so you want it to look kind of fuzzy along there. And also the little hairs that stick out of his ears. And here I'm working on that again and trying to get to show that, but not put too many hairs on there, just a little bit of some hairs. And I'm using my black and white charcoal pencils interchangeably there for that. Adding a little bit more of the darker hairs along the side of his head, trying to widen that out a little. And just kind of along on his legs, and do his toes on the bottom of his foot with the black charcoal. And then a little bit of some of the black hair that are along on his hind legs and also on his tail. So this is the end of part 2 in my Charcoal Cat series. And in part 3, we're going to be adding the final details and making the final refinements to the painting. So if you're interested in seeing that, hit the subscribe button. And thanks everybody for watching. Thank you so much for your support. If you have any questions, just leave them in the comments down below, and I will catch you later.